In Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman, a renowned psychologist and Nobel laureate, presents a compelling exploration of the human mind. Kahneman delves into the dichotomy of two distinct systems that govern our thinking: System 1, which is fast, intuitive, and emotional, and System 2, which is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. Through this lens, he offers deep insights into the biases and errors in our judgments and decisions. The book begins by establishing a foundational understanding of the two systems. System 1 operates automatically and quickly, with little or no effort and no sense of voluntary control. An example of System 1 at work would be when you easily recognize the emotion in a person's face or when you read words on a large billboard. System 2, on the other hand, allocates attention to the effortful mental activities that demand it, including complex computations. You engage System 2 when you focus on the voice of a particular person in a crowded and noisy room or when you search for a particular face in a large crowd. Kahneman uses a wealth of examples and anecdotes to illustrate how these two systems shape our judgments and decisions. A particularly striking example is the invisible gorilla test, which showcases our selective attention. Participants watch a video where they are tasked with counting the number of times a basketball is passed between players wearing white shirts. Midway through the video, a person in a gorilla suit walks across the scene. Remarkably, about half of the viewers do not notice the gorilla at all, as their System 2 is so focused on counting passes that their System 1 does not alert them to the unexpected yet conspicuous event. This test highlights a central theme of Kahneman's work, that our System 1 is incredibly influential, governing much of our behavior and thoughts, yet we are often unaware of its influence. System 1 is capable of answering questions like, is this person friendly or hostile, swiftly and based on limited information. However, it is also prone to biases and can be misled easily, as seen in the gorilla experiment. System 2, although more reliable, is lazy and often looks for an easy way out, hence, it is often content to accept the suggestions of System 1 without much scrutiny. Another concept Kahneman introduces is the availability heuristic, a mental shortcut that relies on immediate examples that come to mind. When judging the frequency or probability of something, System 1's tendency is to rely on information that is readily available in our memory, which can often be misleading. For instance, people might overestimate the risk of dying in a plane crash after seeing a plane crash reported in the news. The vividness and recency of the news report make the possibility seem more common than it is, even though statistically, plane crashes are extremely rare. Kahneman also explores how System 1's reliance on intuition can lead to systematic errors in thinking, known as cognitive biases. A notable example is the confirmation bias, where we favor information that confirms our existing beliefs. If you believe that left-handed people are more creative, you're more likely to notice instances that support this belief while overlooking examples that don't. This bias can lead to erroneous conclusions, as System 1 tends to jump to conclusions based on limited evidence. As Kahneman leads us through the complexities of our thought processes, he emphasizes the importance of acknowledging the limitations of our intuitive judgments. In situations where stakes are high, we should not solely rely on System 1. Instead, we should engage System 2 to analyze and question our intuitive choices and judgments. This might mean spending more time considering a decision, seeking additional information, or even just being more aware of our susceptibility to biases. The interplay between System 1 and System 2 has profound implications for everything from personal decision-making to public policy. Kahneman's exploration offers not just a roadmap for understanding the mind, but also practical advice on how to make better decisions, be more aware of our biases, and understand the limitations of our intuitive judgments. In conclusion, Thinking, Fast and Slow, is a masterful synthesis of psychology and behavioral economics that provides invaluable insights into the workings of the human mind. Kahneman's work encourages us to question our intuitive first impressions and to be more mindful of the cognitive biases that can lead us astray. It's a book that challenges us to think more deeply about how we think. Moving deeper into the intricacies of the human mind, Daniel Kahneman in Thinking, Fast and Slow, illustrates how our thinking is often guided by heuristics and biases. Heuristics are mental shortcuts that help us make decisions quickly, but they can also lead to systematic errors or biases. Kahneman's exploration in this realm provides a fascinating insight into why and how we often err in judgment and decision-making. A key concept Kahneman discusses is the representativeness heuristic, where people judge the probability of an event by finding a representative, existing model and assuming the probabilities will be similar. This often leads to errors because not all similar things are the same. For instance, if told about a shy, poetry-loving individual, many would quickly classify this person as a humanities student rather than a data scientist, based on stereotypes. This judgment overlooks the fact that there are far more data scientists than humanities students, making the latter statistically more likely. Another heuristic Kahneman delves into is the anchoring effect. This is when people rely too heavily on the first piece of information, the anchor, they hear when making decisions. For example, if a car salesman starts with a high initial price for a car, all subsequent negotiations will likely hover around that price, even if it is much higher than the car's actual value. Our mind gives disproportionate weight to this first piece of information, impacting all subsequent thinking. Kahneman also addresses the issue of availability bias, which occurs when people overestimate the importance of information that is available to them. A classic example is how media coverage can affect people's perception of risk. If there are frequent news reports about shark attacks, people may believe these events are more common than they actually are. This bias is driven by System 1's tendency to rely on information that is most readily at hand when making decisions. In the context of overconfidence, Kahneman points out that people often overestimate their own abilities and the accuracy of their knowledge. This overconfidence can manifest in various ways, from an investor overestimating their ability to pick stocks, to a doctor being overly confident in a diagnosis. Such overconfidence is not merely about ego, it is deeply rooted in the workings of System 1, which tends to generate quick, confident answers to complex questions, often overlooking the nuances and uncertainties. Kahneman gives particular attention to the concept of illusion of understanding, which is the tendency for people to construct coherent stories about the past that give them an illusion of understanding events and their causality. This can lead to an exaggerated belief in the predictability of events. For example, after an election, commentators often construct a narrative explaining the outcome, making it seem as if it was predictable, even though they failed to predict it beforehand. Kahneman's exploration of biases and heuristics in Thinking, Fast and Slow offers a profound lesson. Our judgments and decisions are not as rational as we might believe. He demonstrates how our mind, led by System 1, frequently jumps to conclusions based on limited information and biased reasoning. The realization of this can be somewhat unsettling but also enlightening. It urges us to be more mindful of our decision-making processes, to question our intuitions, and to acknowledge the inherent fallibility of our judgments. By highlighting these biases and heuristics, Kahneman not only presents an intriguing picture of the human psyche but also provides valuable guidance on how to mitigate these inherent cognitive biases. This understanding is crucial for both personal development and for professionals in various fields where decision-making plays a critical role. In conclusion, Kahneman's discussion of heuristics and biases serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities and imperfections of human thought. By understanding these mental shortcuts and their impact, we are better positioned to make more informed, rational decisions and to understand the psychological forces that shape our perceptions and actions. Continuing from the exploration of heuristics and biases, Daniel Kahneman in Thinking, Fast and Slow delves into the concept of overconfidence and its profound impact on human cognition. Overconfidence, as Kahneman describes, is not just a matter of ego, it's a fundamental error in our thinking process, deeply rooted in the workings of System 1. This phenomenon is particularly significant as it pervades various aspects of human decision-making, from personal life choices to professional judgments in fields like finance, medicine, and politics. Kahneman explains that overconfidence is often the result of the illusion of skill, where people believe their abilities are greater than they actually are. This is particularly evident in areas where the outcomes are subject to a high degree of chance, such as the stock market. He cites studies showing that the performance of individual stock traders is largely random, yet traders generally believe they are skilled at picking stocks. This illusion of skill is fueled by a natural human desire to create narratives and see patterns where none exist, leading to an overestimation of one's ability to influence outcomes. This overconfidence is further exacerbated by hindsight bias, a phenomenon where, after an event has occurred, it seems inevitable and predictable. Kahneman illustrates this with the example of financial analysts who, after a major economic event, construct a narrative that makes the event seem predictable, despite having failed to predict it themselves. This hindsight bias reinforces overconfidence in our ability to predict and control future events, leading to riskier decisions. Kahneman also discusses the planning fallacy, a tendency to underestimate the time, costs, and risks of future actions and overestimate the benefits. This bias is evident in everything from everyday tasks to large infrastructure projects. He provides the example of the Sydney Opera House, whose construction was initially estimated to take 4 years and cost $7 million, but eventually took 14 years and cost $102 million. This underestimation stems from our tendency to focus on the most optimistic scenario while ignoring statistical realities and potential obstacles. This discussion on overconfidence seamlessly leads to the theme of risk and decision-making under uncertainty. Kahneman explains how people assess risk and make decisions, emphasizing the role of emotions and personal experience over statistical facts. People often rely on what feels true, guided by System 1, rather than what they know to be true, analyzed by System 2. This reliance can lead to skewed risk perceptions, where individuals might overestimate the risk of dramatic, rare events, like terrorist attacks, and underestimate the risk of common, less sensational issues, like heart disease. Kahneman introduces the concept of loss aversion, where people tend to prefer avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains. This can be seen in how investors are often more affected by the prospect of losing money than the opportunity of making an equivalent amount. He relates this to prospect theory, which he developed with Amos Tversky. Prospect theory posits that people make decisions based on the potential value of losses and gains, rather than the final outcome, and that people evaluate these losses and gains using certain heuristics. The book then explores how our decision-making is affected by the way choices are presented to us, or framing effects. Kahneman illustrates this with his famous experiment where participants were given 2 different scenarios of a disease outbreak. Depending on whether the outcomes were framed in terms of lives saved or lives lost, participants chose different strategies, even though the statistical outcomes were the same. This shows how the framing of a situation can significantly influence our perception and decision-making process. Kahneman's exploration into overconfidence, risk, and decision-making provides a crucial understanding of how we often let biases and emotional responses guide our judgments, sometimes leading to suboptimal or even disastrous outcomes. It emphasizes the need for a more measured, statistical, and rational approach in situations where stakes are high, highlighting the importance of engaging System 2 to critically analyze and question our intuitive judgments and decisions. In conclusion, Kahneman's insights into overconfidence and decision-making under uncertainty are not just academic musings, they have real-world implications. They challenge us to confront our own cognitive limitations and biases, urging a more thoughtful, informed approach to both personal and professional decision-making. In the seminal work, Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman extends his exploration of human cognition to the realms of prospect theory and the impact of framing effects on decision-making. This section of the book builds on the earlier discussions about overconfidence and decision-making under uncertainty, delving into how our perceptions of gains and losses are shaped not just by the outcomes themselves, but also by the way they are presented or framed. Prospect theory, a concept Kahneman developed with his colleague Amos Tversky, challenges the traditional economic view that individuals always act rationally to maximize their utility. Instead, it suggests that people make decisions based on the potential value of losses and gains, rather than the final outcome, and that these decisions are impacted by the way choices are framed. This theory is a pivotal part of Kahneman's work, as it demonstrates how people's choices can deviate from basic principles of probability and rationality. One of the most compelling examples of prospect theory in action is the Asian disease problem, an experiment where participants are presented with two alternative responses to a hypothetical deadly disease. When the outcomes are framed positively, lives saved, people tend to choose the option with the guaranteed number of lives saved. However, when the same outcomes are framed negatively, lives lost, people are more likely to opt for a riskier strategy with a chance of saving more lives. This experiment illustrates how the framing of a situation can significantly affect decision-making, leading individuals to take risks they might not otherwise consider. Kahneman then guides the reader through the concept of the endowment effect, which is the tendency for people to ascribe more value to things merely because they own them. This is illustrated through experiments where participants value a mug or a pen they own higher than a similar item they do not own, demonstrating how ownership can alter one's perception of value. Moving beyond the realm of economic decision-making, Kahneman discusses the concepts of the experiencing self and the remembering self, which play crucial roles in our perception of happiness. The experiencing self is the you in the moment, who lives in the present and knows the present. In contrast, the remembering self is the you that looks back and recalls past experiences. Kahneman's work reveals an intriguing disconnect between these two selves. Often, the memories of the remembering self dominate the perspective of the experiencing self, even though the latter actually lives the experiences. A thought-provoking example Kahneman presents is the story of a man listening to a symphony, thoroughly enjoying the experience until a loud, unpleasant noise ruins the recording at the end. The man complains that the noise spoiled the whole experience. However, his experiencing self had enjoyed the symphony for most of its duration. It was his remembering self that judged the experience based on how it ended. This highlights how our happiness is not solely determined by our in-the-moment experiences but is also significantly influenced by how we remember and interpret those experiences later. These insights about the two selves lead to profound implications for understanding happiness and well-being. Kahneman explains that life satisfaction is largely determined by the stories we tell ourselves about our lives, which are the domain of the remembering self. However, the actual happiness of the experiencing self is determined by the frequency and intensity of moment-to-moment experiences. Therefore, a good life, as perceived by the remembering self, might be rich in memorable achievements and highlights, while a happy life, as experienced by the experiencing self, would be rich in enjoyable moments. Kahneman's exploration of prospect theory, framing effects, and the two selves provides a comprehensive understanding of how we perceive gains and losses, make decisions, and experience happiness. This understanding challenges traditional notions of rationality and utility in economics, offering a more nuanced view of human behavior that considers cognitive biases, emotional states, and the complex interplay between our experiencing and remembering selves. In conclusion, this section of Kahneman's work not only deepens our understanding of human decision-making and happiness but also has far-reaching implications for fields ranging from economics to psychology. It urges us to reconsider how we evaluate choices, understand happiness, and ultimately, how we live our lives. Building on the profound insights into human cognition, decision-making, and happiness presented in Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman delves into the intricate relationship between our choices, personal values, and well-being. This exploration is particularly fascinating as it ties together the concepts of the experiencing self and the remembering self with the decisions we make and the values that guide us. Kahneman's analysis here not only broadens our understanding of human psychology but also provides valuable insights into how we can enhance our well-being. One of the most compelling aspects of this section is how Kahneman connects the dots between the decisions we make, often influenced by biases and heuristics, and our overall sense of happiness and fulfillment. He posits that our choices are often guided by the stories we tell ourselves, stories influenced by the remembering self. This narrative-driven decision-making can sometimes lead us astray, making choices that may seem rational or beneficial in retrospect, but don't necessarily contribute to our overall happiness. Kahneman explores how our personal values shape these narratives and, in turn, our decisions. For instance, if one values financial success above all, their decisions will likely reflect this, potentially at the expense of other aspects of life such as relationships or personal health. However, Kahneman notes that these values are often influenced by societal norms and expectations, which can lead to a misalignment between what truly brings us happiness and what we pursue. This misalignment is poignantly illustrated in Kahneman's discussion of the focusing illusion. He famously stated, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is, while you are thinking about it." This illusion arises when we focus too much on a single aspect of an event or decision, magnifying its perceived importance and thereby skewing our judgment. For example, we might think that achieving a particular career goal will make us significantly happier. While it might have some impact, its overall effect on our long-term happiness is often less than we anticipate. This is because we tend to overlook other factors that contribute to happiness, such as social relationships, leisure activities, and personal health. Kahneman further argues that well-being is not just about making choices that align with our values but also about how we experience and remember these choices. The experiencing self might derive joy from moment-to-moment pleasures, while the remembering self focuses on how these moments build into a coherent and satisfying life narrative. A balanced approach that caters to both selves is crucial for overall well-being. Kahneman also addresses the complexity of measuring well-being, discussing various approaches and their limitations. He differentiates between objective measures of well-being, such as income levels, life expectancy, and subjective measures, such as self-reported life satisfaction. He highlights the importance of considering both types of measures in policymaking and personal decision-making, as they offer different but complementary perspectives on well-being. In conclusion, this part of Kahneman's work provides a nuanced understanding of how our choices and values intersect with our well-being. It encourages us to reflect on the nature of our decisions, the values that drive them, and how they contribute to our overall happiness. Kahneman's insights urge us to look beyond immediate gratification and to consider the broader narrative of our lives, offering a roadmap to a more fulfilled and balanced existence. As Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow progresses, the narrative seamlessly transitions into discussing the practical applications of the principles outlined in previous sections. This part of the book is particularly compelling as it extends the theoretical concepts into real-world scenarios, illustrating how the interplay between System 1 and System 2, along with the various heuristics and biases, have profound implications in diverse fields such as finance, medicine, and policy making. Kahneman's work here is not just an academic exercise, it provides a practical toolkit for understanding and improving decision-making in complex, real-world situations. In the realm of finance, Kahneman's insights into overconfidence and risk perception have significant implications. The financial market, often driven by predictions and speculations, is a breeding ground for overconfidence. Investors and financial professionals frequently fall prey to the illusion of skill, believing they can predict market movements. Kahneman cites examples and studies showing that this overconfidence, often coupled with the hindsight bias, leads to risky and sometimes catastrophic investment decisions. The takeaway for the financial industry is the need for a more cautious approach, valuing statistical analysis and historical trends over individual intuition and prediction. In medicine, Kahneman's work has profound implications for both diagnostics and treatment. Medical professionals, like anyone else, are susceptible to cognitive biases. For example, a doctor might be influenced by the availability heuristic, diagnosing a more common illness instead of a rarer but more fitting one, simply because the symptoms align with the more frequently encountered disease. Kahneman's exploration of these biases underscores the importance of evidence-based medicine, where decisions are made based on research and data rather than solely on the physician's intuition or experience. Policymaking is another area where Kahneman's principles find significant application. Policymakers often have to make decisions that affect millions of people, and understanding the biases in human cognition can lead to more effective and equitable policies. For instance, the concept of loss aversion can be crucial in understanding public resistance to certain policies, even when they are beneficial in the long run. By framing policies in a way that minimizes perceived losses or highlights potential gains, policymakers can better align public perception with the intended benefits of the policies. Moreover, Kahneman's distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self has implications for public policy related to welfare and happiness. Policies aimed at improving the well-being of citizens must consider not just the overall life satisfaction, the domain of the remembering self, but also the quality of day-to-day experiences, the domain of the experiencing self. This nuanced understanding can lead to policies that not only improve the economic indicators of well-being but also enhance the daily lives of individuals. Kahneman's exploration into the practical applications of his theories is not just a guide for professionals in these fields. It also serves as a reminder to the general public of the pervasive influence of cognitive biases and the importance of critical thinking. It encourages individuals to question their intuition, to be aware of their biases, and to seek evidence and rational analysis when making important decisions. In conclusion, the practical applications of Kahneman's work are vast and influential. By applying the concepts of thinking, fast and slow, to finance, medicine, policy making, and other areas, we can better understand and mitigate the impact of cognitive biases in our professional and personal lives. This understanding enables more rational, informed, and effective decision-making, with the potential to significantly improve both individual outcomes and societal well-being. Daniel Kahneman not only provides a comprehensive analysis of how our minds work but also illustrates how these insights can be practically applied in various fields. This part of the book is particularly compelling as it takes the theoretical concepts discussed earlier and demonstrates their real-world implications, showing how understanding our cognitive biases and decision-making processes can significantly improve practices in areas such as finance, medicine, and public policy. In the realm of finance, Kahneman's insights into overconfidence and the illusion of skill have profound implications. The financial industry, often driven by predictions and stock picking, can be a hotbed for overconfidence. Kahneman points out that financial professionals often overestimate their ability to forecast market trends, a phenomenon exacerbated by the narrative fallacy, our tendency to create stories that explain random events as predictable patterns. He suggests that a better understanding of these biases could lead to more prudent investment strategies that are less reliant on prediction and more on statistical evidence and diversification. Kahneman's work also has significant applications in the field of medicine, particularly in diagnosis and treatment decisions. He highlights how doctors, like all humans, are susceptible to cognitive biases such as anchoring and confirmation bias. For instance, a doctor might anchor on a particular diagnosis early in the assessment process and then look for evidence that confirms this initial hypothesis, potentially overlooking other possibilities. Kahneman argues for the incorporation of statistical thinking and decision support systems in medical practice to counteract these biases. By integrating these tools, medical professionals can make more accurate diagnoses and treatment plans, improving patient outcomes. The implications of Kahneman's research extend into the realm of public policy as well. Policy makers often have to make decisions under uncertainty and are susceptible to the same cognitive biases as everyone else. Kahneman suggests that a better understanding of how people make decisions, particularly regarding risk and uncertainty, can lead to more effective policies. For example, by understanding how framing effects influence public opinion, policymakers can frame information in a way that leads to better public understanding and acceptance of policies. Furthermore, recognizing the impact of loss aversion can help in designing policies that are more likely to be accepted by the public, such as phrasing tax increases in terms of avoiding losses, like service cuts, rather than potential gains. In discussing these practical applications, Kahneman does not merely critique current practices but offers a blueprint for improvement. His work suggests that by acknowledging and understanding our cognitive limitations, we can design systems and processes that mitigate their effects, leading to better outcomes across various domains. This approach, combining human judgment with statistical analysis and decision support systems, has the potential to vastly improve decision-making in complex, high-stakes environments. Kahneman's exploration of practical applications is not just an academic exercise. It has tangible benefits for society by enhancing decision-making in critical areas that affect our lives. His work underscores the importance of integrating psychological insights into various fields, emphasizing the need for a multidisciplinary approach to solving complex problems. In conclusion, the practical applications of Kahneman's research highlighted in Thinking, Fast and Slow demonstrate the real-world impact of understanding human cognition. They offer a valuable perspective on how we can use this understanding to make better decisions, both at an individual and societal level. By applying these insights, we can mitigate the effects of our cognitive biases and improve practices in fields as diverse as finance, medicine, and public policy, ultimately leading to more informed, rational, and effective decision-making. In the final section of Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman brings together the myriad threads of his comprehensive exploration of human cognition, judgment, and decision-making. This conclusion serves not only as a summary of the key ideas presented throughout the book but also as a reflective contemplation on their broader implications for individuals and society. Kahneman's work is a deep dive into the dual systems of our mind, the fast, intuitive, and often emotional System 1, and the slow, logical, and deliberate System 2. He meticulously illustrates how these two systems interact and sometimes conflict, profoundly influencing our choices, beliefs, and actions. Through a myriad of examples, from the illusions of cognitive biases to the intricacies of prospect theory, Kahneman demonstrates that our minds are far more complex and less rational than we might like to believe. One of the most striking revelations in Kahneman's book is the pervasive influence of cognitive biases in our lives. He sheds light on biases such as overconfidence, confirmation bias, and the anchoring effect, showing how they can lead to flawed decision-making in personal life, professional environments, and even on a societal scale. By understanding these biases, Kahneman suggests, we can better guard against them, thereby improving our decision-making processes. Another key aspect of Kahneman's work is the distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self, and their respective influences on our perception of happiness. This distinction challenges our understanding of well-being and suggests that our pursuit of happiness might sometimes be misaligned with what genuinely brings us joy and fulfillment. Reflecting on these insights, Kahneman's work is not just a revelation of the flaws and limitations of human judgment, it is also a guide on how to navigate these challenges. He advocates for a greater reliance on statistical thinking and decision support systems in areas where the stakes are high and human judgment is prone to error. This is not to diminish the value of human intuition but to suggest a balanced approach where intuition is informed and tempered by rational analysis. The implications of Kahneman's work extend far beyond academia. In a world increasingly reliant on quick judgments and rapid decision-making, his insights are especially relevant. They serve as a caution against the unexamined acceptance of intuitive choices and a reminder of the value of slow, deliberate thought in an age of instant information and constant stimulation. In essence, Thinking, Fast and Slow is a call to awareness. It invites readers to understand the complex machinery of their minds, to recognize their cognitive biases, and to approach decisions with a more nuanced view of human rationality. Kahneman does not offer simple solutions to the complexities of human thought, instead, he provides the tools to better understand and navigate them. In conclusion, Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow is a seminal work that has reshaped our understanding of human cognition. Its insights have profound implications for how we think about thinking, make decisions, and pursue happiness. By unveiling the intricacies of our minds, Kahneman's work challenges us to be more mindful, critical, and deliberate in our thinking, ultimately empowering us to make better decisions and lead more fulfilling lives.